Hello everyone, this is your weather woman meteorologist Amy Metz going over Cyclone Yaas in the Bay of Bengal. I'm going to let this satellite loop play out a few times. You'll see those clouds in white. You'll notice it becomes daylight soon. It's about 9 a.m. locally, where the cyclone is going to be affecting the region very shortly. In fact, there's already been quite a few videos of very wild, turbulent seas where fishermen have already been asked to get out of the water. We're seeing some strong winds already, and now at the center of this storm, although it's still quite a bit of ways offshore right here in the yellow, we're seeing where it's highlighted here now that it's daylight. It is about 110 kilometers per hour. And because the water is very warm in this area that we'll get into later, it will be intensifying, getting a little stronger before landfall, where it's projected to be 130 kilometers at landfall. So this can be very damaging, and it's going to be continuing with cyclonic wind speeds pretty far inland. Not quite as far as Nepal, but probably about halfway there. And Bihar, other portions of India are going to feel the effects of this storm with rain in the coming days. So the worst of the worst right now is going to be the landfall. It's going to be the flood surge ahead of that. So to give you an idea about Bangladesh, is a very populated, very colorful and vibrant city with a lot of people, but also a lot of coastline with a high population. So there's not a lot of terrain to help people lift up off the ground to avoid the flood surge. This is why I've been asking people to evacuate before they end up in these situations. In some cases you can live, but in other cases, if water's rushing down terrain from further away, it can be moving, it can sweep people away and cause landslides when you do finally get into some hilly areas. So that's why it's usually best to be out of the area or in a shelter, somewhere that has really strong concrete walls. Because these wind speeds are going to be pretty damaging, up to 165 kilometers per hour on the wind speeds, with 185 maxing out on the gusts from IMD. This is the Indian Meteorological Department. And right now what we're looking at is, where that 110 was listed on the last map that we looked at with wind speeds. So it is right in the middle there. Gusts are a little bit higher. And we're going to continue to see this strengthen. Warm water, low wind shear. So it's a formula for stronger winds. And it's just time to prepare. And unfortunately, a lot of homes here aren't quite built for this sort of storm. So there will be a lot of destruction, but if people can get out of the way, Kolkata is another very populated region that is going to be having the flood surge. That's going to be starting about this time. So right now, we're looking at UTC, or Zulu time. This is the Z here. So this will be making a landfall, according to this model, which I would agree with, around the afternoon on Tuesday, but this is UTC. So we're going to change that 6 hours to get into India time and just speed it ahead. So it'll really be around nighttime tomorrow. So this is really kind of a last chance if you live anywhere east of this eye wall and you are somewhere that is low-lying or easy to flood, like I just showed in the photos before. This will be the danger zone because these strong winds will be pushing up water. And so the flood surge could be life-threatening. 90% of deaths do occur in the flooding with these cyclones. So be careful for that. Wind speeds will start to decrease about this time, but they will remain near cyclone speeds or even higher with the gusts for quite a while. So that was about to be hard that it would end in this case well before Nepal, but even there could be having some sights of this storm. So I'll give you an idea of that and look at the satellite view, and then we'll get into the real track and see if perhaps these models are off a little bit and really fine-tune the track once I get a nice view of the synoptic scale. Because it's been a little while since I looked at this now. It's had time to evolve in the last 12 hours, and we've also had solar storms that do have an effect on our weather on Earth. So it's had a lot of reason to intensify. And now moisture, sea surface temperatures that are warm, And low wind shear is what gives us these big, massive storms. So there is a lot of moisture. Dark red is where it's torrential downpours. Then we just have some clouds that are on parts of northeast India that we'll be seeing a lot more West Bengal. And in the coming hours here, I'm going to let us loop this for the last 12 hours on the infrared. So it doesn't matter if it's day or night, we'll see the same type of feedback here. We're going to be looking to see when these rain bands will be projected to make a landfall based on the past progression of the storm. And then I'll match that up with some wind shear in just a moment to give an idea. I already know that the sea surface temperatures, because I looked at them earlier, they are warmer along the coast, so that will increase the storm. Now in the last 12 hours, as I had expected this morning, I posted a picture and those plumes are separate, but they did feed into one another. So there is some features that are helping these collide together, which really only means it's going to get larger, unfortunately. But now is the time to prepare, because looking at this band here, this very strong, deep red, now that I want to look at that, I'll go to the last 2 hours, and we're going to notice that it's getting close to land. So they did have strong winds on the ocean, or the Bay of Bengal, rather. Asking all the fishermen to get off of the water. And now it's going to be doubled with gust fronts. So that means strong winds coming in with these heavy storms. So that can sometimes be along this leading edge in the blue where winds really start to pick up. It can push out a little bit to where it's white here. So definitely Colorado will be getting these very gusty winds in the next 12 hours. I would say perhaps even just 6. And parts of northeast India already are. So now we'll switch over to winds again and get a very close, clear look at what they are right now. And this is per the model, and we also know that the other app was giving us, or let's say Zoom Earth that I showed earlier was saying the same speed here. So very strong cyclone. Now along land already, and these are the gusts, so not all the winds are going to be feeling this way, and around buildings they can change a little, but we're already getting into some cases that can be damaging here with 70-kilometer wind speeds. Nothing more than small branches at that point, or very loose tin roofing and structures like that, but very shortly here we're going to see this increasing and increasing. So I'll play out this model here, and then we're going to take a look in the higher levels at the wind directions to get an idea what the wind shear is like. And I'll zoom in very close so that we can see where this projected landfall is. I want to put also that weather picker, I think, on land now, so we're seeing that yes, it will, according to this model, pick up to the same level that the Indian Meteorological Department was forecasting. And so remember here too that anywhere in these strong wind speeds, anything blue and higher embedded within that purple is 100 kilometers per hour or higher. Remember that east side of this center and that eye wall is where all that storm surge will be. So we're looking at very strong winds coming across land, and they're putting it right here in this region. So we'll go ahead and see just how close it ends up being to this river here, and in relation to the winds in the upper levels. So if I go up to about 600 millibars, we're about halfway through the sky. It's a little bit higher than where you normally see the bottoms of clouds. And I'm going to put this back to the now time and get a further back view so that I can get an idea of where this massive bunch of energy will be moving to. Now at this level, a lot of people call this the steering winds, and we know natural systems tend to take the path of least resistance. I can tell right away this is embedded in a mid-level trough. Whether it was hard like that or now this has just become one, I'll have to look into old history to find out. But playing this model out, it looks like it just continues to take that path of least resistance where the air is not moving as fast. There's less wind shear. as well. At least I'll go up a little bit higher and find out too. If the wind is moving in the same direction and also kind of weak in the same region, which it is, that means the wind shear is low. And so path of least resistance, somewhere that the hurricane would be able to thrive and continue gaining energy. So that is where they tend to move. The warmer waters are along the coast, so it will continue moving toward the coast for that reason as well. A little bit warmer in this area right here. So I'd also agree with that. And I'm going to go up to the jet level as well and just get an idea of long term where this big massive storm may be wanting to move. And before I play out the model, I'll just kind of stare at this again, remembering there's low wind shear here. So I can already tell there's some energy on that northeastern side, which tends to be the stronger side of these cyclones in most cases. That it's already joining up with the jet. Some of it's actually dispersing and leaving, even though some of that upper level moisture that we saw on satellite for the last 12 hours was wrapping back around more. So I do believe that this storm will kind of split off. After it makes landfall, it will probably move inland, being strong like they say, like IMD says and so many other sources. This model as well, which I'll show to that point now because I do agree with that very well, seeing what I've seen as a meteorologist now at this point. So this landfall, yes, will likely get into that inlet there where the Bay of Bengal takes kind of its sharp turn. And at this point, I believe it will begin to split and weaken drastically. So this is Tuesday night. In other words, locally in India, that's really Wednesday morning that I believe this will begin to split. So Wednesday morning is still going to be very intense, very windy, rainy, and dangerous with flooding, especially near high terrain and downstream of all those high slopes, especially along this northeast side. So it's going to be surge, and then it will be flooding along the coast and then inland. And it will be prolonged through this period, through Wednesday all day, at which point the model also suggests here that, yes, it will split apart a bit. There's some wind shear interacting with it then at this point. Beginning to break it apart. It will have to cool down because it's not over that warm water. There's a lot of cloud cover to keep it a little cooler. And we do see that it's getting smaller and smaller with those bright colors near the circulation, meaning that the wind speeds are actually decreasing drastically then, and that by Thursday evening it should be pretty much over. There will still probably be some flooding going on, flash flooding, because there is quite a bit of moisture available and some other lifting mechanisms that are going to be lingering behind the storm. If you notice, there's just so much moisture here. So there will be prolonged rain threats probably through Friday or even Saturday, and I'm sure tons of cleanup along the coastline. So everybody, do please be prepared, have evacuated, or know where to go if you're along coastlines. Then if you're on slopes that may or may not be getting torrential downpours, very, very heavy, that are, that could be a landslide problem if the ground is already kind of saturated and wet. So I would just be careful in those zones especially. There will be quite a bit of rain with this, so I hope that can turn out to be a good thing for crops and other sources. But for the meantime, it is time to get out of the way from Odisha, India, all the way to Bangladesh along the coastlines, or at least have your plan ready now, because this first band of storms is getting close to crossing land. I would give this just between 6 and 12 hours to start interacting with and crossing land with those very strong wind speeds. So I'm going to end this on another looping of what's going on now on Zoom Earth with the current wind speeds. Something just fell over in my house so oddly, excuse me, for the bang. I don't know why that moved, but I will be signing off now. That was all I had for today right now. If you have any questions, please go ahead and let me know in the comments. And in fact, I haven't looked to see if there's any live comments in the chat, but I'll do that before I sign off. So none here right now. I hope everybody can stay safe and be prepared ahead of this cyclone that is projected by the Indian Meteorological Department to have gusts up to 185 kilometers per hour, very damaging. So be careful. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to hit subscribe if you want to keep getting updates on global severe weather and also